Hello you, welcome to Geekism and welcome back to Pinewood Hills. It is Friday, which means that we are here in our British style theme park in Planet Coaster. I say theme park, amusement park. There are going to be some slight themes later on, but it's going to be very light theming. This is a budget family park. Think of places like Lightwater Valley, Flamingo Land, that kind of thing. Okay, so carrying on with some googie architecture. I'm really happy with some of the stuff we built today. We have a new diner here going in. We also work on the station for the boat ride. We also have another go at the sign for the Ferris wheel, and we add a Dodgems, another ride down here as well. And it's nice to see as the stuff gets built that the area starts to get a little bit more populated, and actual guests start heading over here a bit more, which is quite nice. So one of the things I struggled with a little bit this week was that all the googie buildings I can find, they're very often diners, petrol stations or gas stations, I guess, in the States, and things like this, and also in the States just in general. Architecture and sort of property is very separate. It's built very separate unless you're really sort of intercity. Everything has its own land with car parks all the way around it, and parking lots and things like that. So when building a sort of street like this, it's actually quite difficult to find architectural styles, this sort of retrofuturism style that works in a terrace format, so actually buildings next to each other. So for that reason, these old buildings are a little bit spread out with some space in between them, and I think it starts to come together towards the end of this build, but that's definitely something I was aware of, that normally in these sort of parks it would be one large building with facades built to make it look like multiple buildings. So here we've had to kind of keep things a little bit more separate to keep that sort of retro-futuristic architectural style. So with that in mind, this is based on a diner. I couldn't find any information about the diner, unfortunately. It's just a diner in the States somewhere is all I know. But it's very sort of classic googie style, and it has this sort of sloped angular roof. I think it works out quite nicely. We do actually make this one work as well. We stick I think it's got a chief beef in that at the moment, but I think I changed that out for a fries. What's it called? Monsieur Frites. Eventually, thank you for the awful French pronunciation there. I'm sure you enjoyed it. Monsieur Frites, which is the chip shop, basically. Just to give a bit of a variation over here. I think, to be honest, as far as the game is concerned, you could quite easily just put down chief beefs, and the players would, and the guests would be pretty happy. But I just want a little bit of variation. So again, using that single modern window that we have, and just sort of tiering it there, as you can see occasionally, just when it's a bit too small for the space, we do that, and then here we duplicate them and throw them around to make some larger doors. The nice thing about these windows is they work the same back to back. They don't have a back to them, so they work quite nicely for doors without having to duplicate them or anything like that. Here I wanted indoors, I wanted a proper sort of diner floor, this sort of traditional black and white tiled floor. Whether or not they actually use tiles, I don't know. It's most likely probably vinyl, but again, it's a very sort of classic design. And I didn't want to go for a major interior here. I just kind of wanted it so that, again, at a glance, looking through the open doors, it wouldn't look awful. That's kind of the running theme we've got with interiors in Pinewood Hills. Don't mind doing the occasional sort of semi-interior. As you look through the doors, it looks serviceable. That's kind of the idea I'm going for there. I think that needs a billboard in there for menu. Somebody on the Bronation forum, on the Bronation Discord even, pointed out this was a little big, this plant pot here, and it's just a subtle thing, but I actually probably agree with them, so I went back and made that a little smaller. It throws the scale off just a little bit. Here's this great coconut piece that makes real nice mulch, or sort of dirt with bark on and things like that, and we use that quite a lot in this area. Here I go for a little bit of topiary. I feel that even though it's relatively high maintenance, the topiary, it fits quite nicely with the angular style of googie, so we've gone for a little bit there, but you'll see the rest of the planter areas I actually don't don't fill them with plants, because I'll be honest with you, I'm a little unsure as what to do. Here I'm building a drive-through window. It's purely aesthetic, this is, though. It's just because I wanted to have this awesome car by Wings and Strings out there, and I think what I do need to do at some point actually is go and add plaques to these cars as well to say what they are, you know. This is the sort of thing that I have seen occasionally. I don't know whether a theme park I've seen it, but I've definitely seen it in some larger malls and things like that. I remember specifically the Trafford Centre in Manchester, which is a really large mall. They have a few sort of classic cars just sort of set up with plaques for no other reason than they look nice, and they kind of bring an air of reminiscence and memory to it. So here we're adding our sign. I call it Picky's Diner. I have no idea why. I just typed letters until the word looked okay. So Picky's is what it's called, and I think we say that it's Picky's drive-through. Actually, I actually think I get rid of the Picky's bit in the end and just have the drive-through sign. As I said before, the signs in this game are, for the most part, quite garish and quite large and a bit gross, but they work really well with this style of building, so I have to do very little to them. Obviously, I've done a few custom signs, but for the most part, in the googie area, you can just use the signs as they are in the game and play them against each other. I'm quite happy with the one I do for the boat ride station in a moment, so you'll see that. Here I'm just doing a little bit of backstage work, nothing crazy at the moment, basically just sort of laying out the walls and the path areas, and I throw a few bins and stuff down, but I probably will at some point go back and edit these a little bit more, maybe add a couple of the smaller trucks that we've used in other areas, and just some more sort of clutter and general bits and bobs. Always looking for suggestions on what to do backstage rather than just more crates and barrels, you know, because they're not really particularly realistic. Here, somebody pointed out in the comments that people could jump over here or throw stuff over here, so I just raised it up to make it a little bit more safety conscious. That is definitely something we could take into account in UK parks. It's not quite to the extreme of American parks. Obviously, America has a much more of a litigious nature than we do here in the UK. So there are the points in a lot of places where, you know, it's your own fault if you fall in, basically. I mean, obviously people would probably still sue, but they're based around the fact that 99.999% of people wouldn't. I know, for instance, but Alton Towers has a lake that you can pretty much just go and walk into the lake if you wanted to at some points. They don't have a completely sort of boxed in area. So here I'm building a fence, but I wanted something different to the fence we've been using on the outskirts of the park. I wanted something a little bit more decorative, but still very cheap, still very serviceable. So I had a little Google of wooden fences, and this one was one that seemed pretty simple to do. It kind of looks a bit like a pallet, to be honest, but it isn't. It isn't meant to be a pallet sort of on its side, but that's kind of the look it's got. And this was just to kind of, like I say, fill in these few little gaps of areas where the buildings don't actually meet. There's a few areas of path there left over from the raised section of the cinema, so I just kind of make them into features, small areas where stuff would be stored and things like that. So using a few of those larger adventure pieces. They are pretty large, those adventure walls, but they do come in handy for that sort of thing, for creating foundations and sort of areas like that. And a couple of doors onto the back of the diner, and again, obviously a few of those bins. Still need to do a bit of work, like I say, on the back of the cinema area. I thought a couple of benches would work quite well here, as sort of look like staff benches, smoking area, that kind of thing. Somebody mentioned that they'd like to see smoking areas in the park in general for public to use as well. That's actually quite a good idea. They're definitely sort of things they have. I know they definitely have them in Alton Towers, little sort of corners where you can potter away and have a smoke. There is a small area by the kiddie wooden coaster, the Tiki Cheeky Little Thunder, I think we called it, didn't we? I forget, it's my own park, but I can't remember. There's a small area there that's a little bit off the beaten track that could quite easily become a smoking area, so maybe we'll go back and just add a small sign there and make it look like a smoking area. The other thing I need a little bit of help with is there's large areas of path here. I've tried to keep them as small as possible, or at least fill them with things. One of the things I do is use quite a few benches and tables in this area, because this is mostly food and drink, this area, so I wanted to get a few benches. And also, looking around a few parks on things like Google Street View and things like that, it's actually quite shocking how much seating there is. It's everywhere, and I think it's one thing that people perhaps maybe don't do enough of in this place. It's they use a lot of seating, and I think it's something we need to address. Here, I wanted to do a little bit of pathing again. For some reason, I couldn't use the grid to square the path off there, so I just used some of the larger pieces. That carries on to the other side of the fence as well in a moment, and it doesn't really do anything other than acts as a piece of foundation. You know, it's maybe covering some pipes, that sort of thing. We just stick a no climbing sign on it. That actually, when I first typed, it said no typing. That was because while I was building this, I was actually on a live stream as a guest on, I'm pretty sure it was Uthris's live stream. We had a day of live streaming to launch our new project, Planko Spotlights. So I'm going to speak about in a minute. Sorry, I just want to talk here about the new sign we've done. This sign was done in a live stream on the channel. Every Tuesday night we live stream Pinewood Hills, where we come and build something out of the park to add into the video. And we built this googie style Pinewood Hills sign, very reminiscent of some old cinema signs, the Las Vegas sign, things like that. This area obviously was built in the 60s, so I wanted something very 60s, but looks a little bit dated now, so we use lots of washed out colours. We have a bit of the lights hanging down there and stuff like that, and then we recolour the Ferris wheel there to kind of match. Right, okay, we start working now on the boat station, but while I do that, I'll have a quick chat to you about Planko Spotlights if you don't know already. Planko Spotlights is a new community channel that is been put together mostly by Delay Designer. She's done a lot of the legwork, but the people involved in the channel are all the sort of big names in the Planet Coaster YouTube community. I don't really like the term big names, but people that you're going to probably seen videos from. So it's myself, Delay Designer, Silverette, Uthris. Then we have Commando Santa and Ruble Trillions from Jubilee Gardens. We also have Mike and John, or MaskedBandit and Elixir or Nitro, whatever wants to be called this week, from Bro Coaster. And then also A&O Gaming, SP Ridley, Adfo TV, Free the Bear, Pixel Wears. I really hope I haven't forgotten anybody, but I that's all I can think of off the top of my head. Anyway, the channel, Planko Spotlights, is a way for us to spotlight some of the fantastic creations on the Steam Workshop. Some of the stuff that is really, really great, but doesn't quite get the recognition it deserves, because the Steam Workshop's a little funky about how it shows stuff, unfortunately. So you've got to get a good sort of 100 people to see something before it even pops up on the page. So that's what we're going to be doing. You can submit things to the channel. Yeah, they'll be showcased by one of us. We're hoping to do daily videos. At the moment, we're keeping that up. You know, we'll try our best to keep that up. And it's just a great way to see some of the creative brilliance that's going on in the Planko community. Really great for inspiration. I've taken ideas from it already. We're only a week in, and even now I'm making notes of stuff that I've seen. There was a fantastic Arabian market that was showcased this week by A&O Gaming that had this gorgeous little fortune teller's tent in it, and I instantly wrote that down. I thought, if I ever do a fairy tale area, I'm definitely doing a fortune teller's tent. So it's going to be really useful for inspiration, for ideas, just clever ways of using pieces. It really is a great thing. And the best thing about it is all the proceeds, we raise money through live streams and donations for Special Effects, which is a fantastic charity based in the UK that promotes fun and inclusion for people with disabilities through video games. So they help people with physical disabilities installing equipment that allows them to play the games that they love, and it's a really great charity, a really good cause, and very deserving of your money. So there you go, Planko Spotlights. I'll pop a link in the description to it. I hope to see you over there. I'm sure a lot of you are already over there, but if you're not, please go and check it out. So this station we're building here is again based on a real life building. It's based on, I actually know where this one is. It's a Shell petrol station actually in Fremont, California. It was built in the 60s, I believe. And very classic googie, uses lots of bold shapes, and obviously I have not made it identical. The colour's a bit different, the shape's a bit different, but I loved this shaped roof, and that's one thing I really wanted in this googie area, was seeing as all these buildings were different. So I wanted to really sort of encapsulate the fact that they're different and really draw attention to it rather than try and hide it. So all the roofs are different colours, different shapes, different sizes. That's a very key part of googie architecture from what I can tell, is these sort of crazy roofs, and it almost looks looks like the buildings are built top down. They build the roof first and then the rest comes afterwards, and that's actually how I pretty much built most of these buildings. I built the roof first and then worked my way down. One thing I need a little bit of advice for, please, any suggestions for what to do in there's a really large area, because I wanted this station to be quite long to get a few boats in, but obviously it's only filling one boat at a time, so there's only one queue in it, which gives us this really huge area to the left of the queue looking at it from this angle. I have no idea what to do with it. Here I've just done some very simple railings. I wanted this to be a very editable queue in the game, so that they have these bands that you can take off and put on and reattach and make extra lines if you need to, and take them away if you don't need them. And the wooden sort of dock area, I wanted something that was very easy to deal with water and things like that. So, but the other side, yeah, it's quite empty at the moment. So I don't really know what to do. I've toyed around with having the idea of just sort of like spares, you know, maybe some tyres, that kind of thing, maybe a couple of the smaller rowboats to be used as sort of, you know, lifeguard boats if ever they need a boat to throw in quick, things like that. We have rubber rings, that kind of thing. There's also that bit of station just there on the right, actually in the water, that is completely superfluous, but it's just how the game puts it there. So I've realised that we actually have scenery pieces of the boats that come with this ride, which is great. So I've put a few of those there, and I haven't decorated in this episode, but I will make it look like that's the spares shop. May put a roof on it and make it into a proper boat yard, I'm not sure. May just have it look like the boats are tied up there and have some rigging and things like that. I'm not too sure yet. You've got to be very careful when you're working with some of the boat pieces and things like that it doesn't instantly become pirate shantytown. So I'm very careful to kind of keep a bit of the googie aesthetic, but also have it very serviceable. And again, I've said it before, I have no problems with serviceable areas being seen by the guests here. Obviously, occasionally I'll try my best to cover them up as a park would, but you know what? This isn't Disney. They aren't all the background buildings green and everything covered up by magic fences and hidden doors and things like that. You know, people, if they want to look, they're going to see things. Here, this little dead space here, I just wanted to try and put a little bit of pathing in. I didn't quite be able to do as much as I'd like, just for a few benches. Still need to work on the wall here. At the moment, it's still open into the water, but whatever wall I do here will go around the whole area. The whole path down there is going to be this huge dock area. So I haven't decided what we're going to do there yet at the moment. Main thing we do here is a sign for the boats themselves. Again, this is based on, if you just Google googie signs, you get some really great stuff, and it's all again about bright colours, geometric shapes, and things like that. So again, this one's actually just built out of signs. The Pinewood Hills one we did for the Ferris wheel is all built out of art pieces, but here, you know, we rarely get to use these signs in the game because they are so sort of stylized, so I thought, well, we'll be able to actually use them here as well. So we just call these lake tours. The original idea for this will have been that when this area was built in the 60s, these boats will have just gone around the lake and literally have just been a boat ride around the lake. They would not have been these adventure type boats. They would have just been more sort of standard powered boats that would take you around the lake. Then later in the development of the park, I'm talking probably sort of 80s, 90s, we are gonna build a sort of adventure-y style area with things like maybe a rapids, you know, maybe a coaster, things like that. And then at that point, they'll have added a second station at the other side of the lake that will be all themed adventure-y, and they'd have added the adventure boats and things like that. So on the other side of the sign here, it says Tours Lake, which doesn't make sense. We get a bit of the BBC there. I was watching something on YouTube. Sorry about that. So I have to add a sign here that says Tours of the Lake, so as that the sentence makes sense. On the other side, the sign says from here or something. So on one side it says Lake Tours from here. On the other side it says Tours of the Lake, and therefore it keeps its symmetry and makes sense. That's kind of the idea there behind it. So it takes me an absolute age to do it from the looks of things. Of the what I would give for a few more fonts in this game, and also just sort of like better sizing of the fonts. Like there's a lot of dead space on this sign here, but I think it's okay. There may well be another option for this of the bit. I'm not too sure. I think I settle on that. I think it's probably the one we go for in the end. The good thing about Googie is as well, colour-wise, you can kind of just go crazy. You'll see those sort of spots on sticks I did there. Again, it's something I see a lot in the Googie architecture I've been looking at. Those colours are actually from a colour palette of 60s colours, but for the most part, I've just kind of either used them again or just gone for some really sort of bright primary colours. That seems to be acceptable. So here's the other side of the sign. So here it's now going to be, yeah, I'm going to swing that around. I've got a feeling that I haven't sped this bit up. It seems like it's taking me an absolute age to do this. Yeah, it looks like I haven't sped this up. Oh, here you go. You get a rare little bit of real time. It's nearly finished now anyway. So this becomes lake tours. So on that side we've got tours of the lake. And on this side we have lake tours. I'm pretty sure I put from here. I think I tried departing from here and I realised it wouldn't fit. So we've got lake tours from here. And the other side we've got tours of the lake. There we go. Right, there you see we've got the flower beds there. Not too sure what to put into those yet. Same with the ones by the dodgems. And looking again at that dead space we've got there under the queue of what to do. Leave you with a few glamour shots. This area is really starting to fill up now, both physically with buildings and also, like you say, you see people wandering around there. He's looking for the toilet, so it looks like we're going to need a toilet. There's the new sign. So glad we went back and redid that. I think it looks 100 times better. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, you can give us a like. It really does help out the channel. And if you're not already, don't forget to subscribe. Any thoughts, queries, or suggestions, pop them down in the comments. Fancy chat, you can find me on Twitter. And if you'd like to join in with the Geekism community, you can do so in our Geekism Discord server. You'll find the link in the description. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again.